first time or only a couple of times. We have a different subject every week in the month. And this is the first week in the month, so this is the time when we function and focus upon the nonprofits in our community. And this is an educational program about what are the nonprofits in our region and what is their mission and vision that they're working on. We've covered a number of topics in the first 5 months of the year, and today we're going to look at the veterans and what's being done to help the veterans and the families of the veterans. So I'd like to introduce at this time Mr. Morris Geisler. Now Morris has got quite a background. He was with the Air Force for 22 years and he retired in 1975. And he was a flight engineer on KB-29s, which Patrick has informed me is a tanker. And then aircraft maintenance, missile maintenance, operations training, personnel, special operations, and he's a master instructor. He's also worked on B-52s, ICBMs, and a raft of others. And he was telling me some stories of adventures in the Air Force and close calls on big jets with doing tankers to jet fighters. So his education includes 2 Associate of Arts degree, a Bachelor of Business Administration, and a Master of Business Administration. And then he's been in adjunct faculty and with the City University for 22 years. He's been a representative and education supervisor with ITT Technical Institute. And in different veterans organizations, he's been with the American Legion for 33 years, Clark County Veterans Resource Committee for 10 years, and Veteran Service Officer, Community Military Appreciation Committee. And he's here fundamentally to speak to us about the overall of veterans organizations and how veterans get help in the Clark County, Southwest Washington area. And he's going to be specifically talking about the 40 and 80. As you may have remembered from the announcement, Sam Brooms was going to be here and talk to us today, but Sam was unable, and Morris has graciously stepped in. He's a member of the organization. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Morris.
It's certainly a privilege for me to be here this morning to address such a prestigious organization and group of people. I listened very diligently as you introduced yourself. And there's so much help to people in this county sitting right here in this room. Sometimes I wonder why we have issues out there among our citizens. However, I'd like to start out by kind of bringing you up to speed as to my business background, since most of you are associated with the business world. First of all, I'm the first one in my family to have the opportunity to graduate from high school. Now, I did graduate, and I do have that diploma somewhere, but a lot of people would say I went in the front door and out the back. Academics was not my thing when I was in high school. Athletics, that type of thing. From the Midwest, I was born and raised in the state of Illinois. Liked agriculture, but farming is a tough, tough business. And I knew that I didn't want to stay there, as my 3 brothers did, for any length of time. So, I went to the Air Force to get an education. And I did get an education. It just wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be, because we had some other missions we had to accomplish before I had a chance to sit down in a chair and learn academics. But I did. This has allowed me, since I retired from the Air Force, to do a lot of things that I like to do. And that's work with people, work with small businesses. I don't like large businesses because they have the resources to employ the big 8 or whomever is out there. And a lot of the issues is that these companies come in and they bring in all the resources they need to do a fine, fine job of helping this company. And they leave a big report. But very few people in the organization can read it. Now, from my standpoint, I like that because that Okay, you came here this morning to find out about the veterans programs in Clark County. I want to start by looking at the Clark County Veterans Resource Committee. And let me get a few of my notes here. Clark County Veterans Resource Committee. Actually, the history of this, when the state of Washington was very, very young, and just getting a good start, which would have been back in the late 1880s, early 1890s, and in that era, they had a lot of people that was coming out here, because this was the new territory. You know, they were coming out to Oregon, they were coming out to Washington, Idaho, but you know where they were coming from? They were coming from the Civil War. We had a lot of people that was disabled coming out of the Civil War. They didn't want any part of the East, the Southeast, the Midwest. They wanted to go out to something fresh. They wanted to forget all about that episode that they had. They came out here. Now, fortunately, our legislators at that time did a wonderful thing. They established, through legislation, and of course right now we look at it through the RCW's, Revised Code of Washington. And we have a specific title for veterans. So they are on the minds of legislators all the time when they go into Olympia. And I just had a conversation with 4 or 5 of them here very recently, where they had to go back for their special session that they had. They couldn't get it done at the regular time. And this was one of the issues that they didn't finish up. Anytime that I look at the local, Olympia, or I look at the national back on Capitol Hill, there will be a tremendous amount of bills dealing with veterans. One time I counted them up and there was a little over 2,000 that was in Congress at some stage. That's a lot of work. Well, anyhow, here we are in Clark County with the Clark County Veterans Resource Committee. It is established by the local legislative authority. That's your commissioners. Right now we have 3 of them. I heard someone whisper in my ear the other day, we ought to have 5, and then we wouldn't have the problem we're having today. Well, nevertheless, that's up to them. The Resource Committee is established by legislation. They must do it. In doing so, they establish a relief fund for veterans. That relief fund comes out of real estate tax. 0.07 per thousand is put aside, restricted funds for veterans only. Here in Clark County, we're down to probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about $400,000. Sounds like a lot of money. But when you realize that every month we may look at, help out, educate, or whatever, 100 to 150 veterans. And that's just a drop in the bucket. There's some 38,000 veterans in Clark County. How many did you do that? You realize that many? That was from the last Bureau of Census. Now where are they at? Well, a lot of them are right, next door neighbors. Somebody working at your business. But there's also a lot of them out there in the woods, out of the bridges, that type of thing. So we need to help them out. The fund is administered by contract from a nonprofit organization. 4 years ago, the Columbia River Mental Health people got it. This time, starting in January, the Human Services Council got the contract. And they're responsible for making sure that when veterans come in, they can get some help. And what do they get help for? Rent, utilities, food, transportation, even the burial expense in some cases. Work-related items. You know, you need a new pair of boots, you need some tools, you need a license or a school. We help out with that. Auto repair. I need to talk to someone because I have auto people that or people need the auto and they can't get their vehicle to someplace. Well, maybe we can work out something. Prescription drugs. And then we added a couple years ago dental. Be surprised how many veterans need a little dental work done. I have the privilege of chairing this committee in Clark County for 2 years. I've been a member of the organization for 10 years, and it's been really an experience. I'm very proud to have done that for Clark County and the veterans here. Let me move on to another organization I helped get started. In fact, I kind of wrote the program, and that's the Clark County Veterans Assistance Center. The main purpose of this center, as we established it, is to provide a safe environment and a listening ear for veterans and their family. Why would I do that?
There you go. Thank you.
Well, let me tell you, when you talk to people under the bridges, out in the woods, the homeless ones, they're there because they don't trust government. They don't trust their neighbors sometimes. And I wanted a place for veterans to come and be able to sit down, have a cup of coffee, tea, chocolate, maybe even a bowl of soup, and not be bugged. Not saying that they're broke and they're going to be fixed. And that's my biggest issue with the VA, Veterans Administration. There are people, oh, you're broke, we're going to fix you. No. The veteran don't want to hear that. So, we started the center. The center's been going on for 2 years. It didn't quite get like I wanted it to, but nevertheless, it did, in fact, provide a place for some veterans to come. Its funding comes from the Relief Fund. The Relief Fund is set up so that we can help veterans through different ways and means. And this is one of the ways that we do that, through that Assistance Center. Okay, CMAC. How many of you have heard about CMAC? Anybody? Okay, all right. CMAC, Community Military Appreciation Committee. I just happen to be next to Larry Smith, councilman, when we kicked the 104th out up to Fort Lewis, Joint Base Lewis McCourt, and we said we needed an organization that was going to ensure that we have a Memorial Day ceremony, that we have something for Independence Day, that we have the POW MIA celebration, and that we had veterans, and we did a professional job for Veterans Day. And that's how it got started. Now, we're doing a lot of other things. We've been very successful with the Gold Star Mothers program. We have got scholarships for the POW MIA students or children from those who've been in that category. So, they've done a wonderful job. I'm back working with them again. I kind of took a sabbatical. You know, every once in a while, with all these nonprofits that I've been associated with, I've got to get away. I've got to take a break. Then I can come back and maybe be somewhat of a help to them. Now, VFW. I know some of you have heard about the VFW. Wonderful organization. They were started before the American Legion. They were started back with at the end of the Spanish-American War, whenever that was. I wasn't around at that time, but nevertheless. It was because of veterans, again, that were injured from the war. And they felt they needed some help because we asked them to go to war for the benefit of the United States of America. And they did. They raised their hand. They signed that check. And there's not a lot of people that do that. But at that time they did. That they would give their life to this country. So anyhow, that's where the VFW come from. The Veterans of Foreign Wars. They do a wonderful job. They have a lot of children programs. They do a lot for veterans. They have a lot of good service officers. I can't say enough about the VFW. They're doing a wonderful time. I got to speed it up a little bit. He's already getting the hook out. So, okay, American Legion. American Legion, again. I've been a member for 33 years. I served as the Department of Washington chaplain for a year. A wonderful opportunity for me. I got to go to almost every post in the state of Washington, meet lots of fine folks. And you know, as a chaplain, it didn't make any difference of what their religious background was. And I am a chaplain. I am an ordained minister. And I work with all beliefs. And I think that everyone has their own style of living. And I respect that. But the American Legion, they also have the children's programs. They do a lot of work in Congress for the veterans, the same as the VFW. These two organizations parallel each other. One is for foreign wars. The other is for specific time frames. Again, it's during wartime. That's my biggest problem with the American Legion. A veteran is a veteran is a veteran. We should treat them all, not hold anybody back. The American Legion, for a period of time, didn't recognize the females in the military. So let me tell you, I was pulled out of the jungle by a couple of females that were working for Air America, which is part of the CIA. And I wouldn't be here today if they had been for them. Now, you wanted to find out about the 40 and 8. So hang on your seats. I'm going to take you through it pretty fast. The 40 and 8 started out in 1920 as an honor society for the American Legion. The American Legion was established in 1919. The first caucus was in Paris, France, and the second caucus was in St. Louis, Missouri, and then they went to Congress, and Congress gave them a charter. And it's been a problem ever since, but nevertheless, that's okay. 40 and 8. The story I tell a lot of people when they ask me about the 40 and 8. Our doughboys, World War I, they went to war, shipped over to France. On the docks, there was a lot of these little boxcars lined up. And that's what took them to the trenches. Those boxcars was narrow gauge, and on the side there was a shield, something similar to what I'm wearing here. That shield had 40/8, and what it meant was that that boxcar would hold 40 men or 8 horses. And I remind people that back in those days, there was an awful lot of mules used also. But that's where the 40 and 8 got their start. In 1920, in Pennsylvania, there was a couple of, well actually it was 16 people that thought that they needed to have an honor society from the American Legion, and they thought that using the boxcar would be a national emblem that they could use. Boxcars have been given to every state and Hawaii and the District of Columbia from the French, and in those boxcars there were all kinds of memorabilia, all kinds of things. There's very few, I think there's only 21 or 22 boxcars left in the States. State of Washington has theirs, and it's up in Yakima. Oregon has theirs, it's down on the coast in Coos Bay, I believe. But these boxcars and everything really and truly create a very, very fine organization. Now let me just quickly run through a couple things that we do. Americanism. Now anything we do, including breathing, is pretty much Americanism, because we are Americans. Secondly, Voyager activities. This can be some things like dinners, dances, the social aspect. National Association of Boxcar Hobos. What this is, we have a national boxcar program. We sell memberships, we sell pins, and that money goes to helping challenged children have a good lunch and ride on the Lokies. Now you all know about our Loki that we have here in 99. It gives them an opportunity to have a great day in their life. And these are challenged children. Some of them are in wheelchairs, some of them are looking at the clock because they don't have long to go. So we pay for that. Child welfare. Carvel Star. Carvel Star is dealing with Hansen's disease, or which is leprosy. And we still have quite a few cases here in America yet of leprosy. But it is in 128 different languages around the world, and we pay for that. Nurses training right now here with 99, which is the Voyager we have here in town. We have about 23 nurses that we scholarship each year through Clark College. POWMIA. In September, we're going to have a service down at the Reserve Center, or the new Reserve Center. They're putting a new memorial there for POWMIAs. I haven't seen it, but it says it looks like it's going to be a pretty nice memorial. VAVS, which is the VA voluntary service, on the third Thursday of the month. A group of us from Voyager 99 over on 78th Street next to the bingo hall, which we own. That's how we can do a lot of these things. We go down to the VA hospital and we do bingo for 2 hours with all the patients down there. And it's a fun time. Wonderful time. Youth sports. No youth should not or should be denied an opportunity because they don't have funding for the uniform, for the membership, or whatever it is in youth sports. Everyone should have that opportunity, and we help do that. We've got some 70 different teams that we are supporting here locally. And that's a pretty quick wrap-up. So let me say this in closing. If it wasn't for the nonprofit organizations that we have in Clark County, and that goes for some of the church programs, it goes for the Salvation Army, it goes for the thrift stores, Friends of the Carpenter, all of these nonprofit organizations, they do such a wonderful job for people who have certain needs that they wouldn't get taken care of if it wasn't for these nonprofits. And the veterans fall right in with that same thing. I pretty much in the last 10, 12 years dedicated my life to helping veterans. I wear a Point Man Ministry cap. It says Vietnam on it, but also it says on there, saved to serve. And I believe that. Thank you kindly.
Well, I'm sure there's some questions. You know, this is a very active group, Morris.
Okay.
So So I'm sure there's always some questions or comments. Yes, Gary?
Well, how does your organization interface with, like, when I go down to the VA hospital, I see a lot of people who are what you're talking about, who really need a lot of help. How do you interface with those people?
Several of us are service officers. We go down there, we help out. When the other chaplain was there before he retired, I couldn't hardly walk in there unless knowing he was going to grab me and take me to see the patient. This is what the bingo does. Now we're getting more and more people going down there. We're getting other veteran organizations going down there, and they dearly love it. And so much so that we go back and we help those people. There's an area down there where most of them, when they get into that area, they know they don't have many days left. And some of us have gone through there. And believe it or not, those people, they've been discharged because they've made improvements to the degree that they don't want them in there. So it's a personal touch, is what we do. Now we also keep an eye on how the VA is operational, and that we take back to Congress. We take it back to our senators, our representatives. That's the other thing we do. Does that answer?
Yeah, I hope you're saying that they do a wonderful job, because they do.
We do, yeah, and I say that as much as I can. When I was the chaplain for the American Legion, I visited every VA hospital in the state of Washington and every soldier's, sailor's home that we had. And I'll tell you, I met some of the finest World War II, Korean War veterans there is. I had a great time.
Mike?
Larry Smith had tried to establish a discount program for the people who had been deployed, for their families who were left behind and that type of thing. And the 40 and 8 took that over. Are you still pursuing that program, or are you aware of the program?
I am aware of the program, and it's in conjunction with the relief fund. It's just that we have to look at certain requirements. We still do a lot of that through the 40 and 8. We don't advertise it, we don't put it on a neon sign, but there are certain people, service officers primarily, know they can come to 40 and 8 and get help. Now, I have to tell you, the economy wasn't good to us for the last 3 years. The bingo part hasn't generated as much revenue as what we could use. But yeah, we're still doing that.
Yeah, because this doesn't seem to address it.
Was the bingo became a problem when they took smoking out of the buildings?
You know, they thought they did, and this was an area, but not really. Now, I just came from managing American Legion Post 176 in Salmon Creek. And the same people played bingo up there, played bingo at 40 and 8, or played bingo over in Portland at the Disabled American Veterans House over there. I don't think so. I don't think the fact that they don't smoke had that much impact. Anybody else? Don't be much.
Yes.
Yeah, so obviously there's a very complex network of organizations trying to help veterans everywhere. For the uneducated ones of us, what would you say is a good point of entry for trying to find out an opportunity for volunteering or collaborating in some way? Because, you know, looking at the vast number of organizations that work in it, it's a little confusing for some of us that don't know exactly which one to attend to.
I would say that the Veterans Assistance Center, make contact with them, or I don't have the number for CMAC, but we're going to be, well, CMAC also meets over the 40 and 8. Most of your churches and most all of the social areas know who to contact for the volunteers and that type of thing. Down at the Assistance Center, they have somewhere between 50 and 90 volunteers down there. It's a complete volunteer program. I wouldn't have it any other way. They said we couldn't do that. We had to have at least a operations manager. Well, I do that. I do that when I sleep. So we don't need that. I'm still volunteering there. And, no, we can do it with volunteers. We really can. But we need
No, Jackie.
people like yourselves to come
Hi,
in
Carla.
and help us out. Especially with a lot of the special things. I heard a lot of specialties here.
Yes, what we have is we have the.
That help you out?
Volunteering down at the VA hospital is also very, very.
Oh, yeah, VS program is very, and I know several people down there. I think Tony's gone now, but there's a new person down there. I've done that. I got started with being the chaplain and the American Legion.
Okay,
And
so it's like.
when I went down there, I didn't check in or anything like that. I wasn't worried about hours.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people, they got thousands of hours volunteers. That's good. That wasn't my thing. I was there to help people. Now I'm going to leave my cards here. You can always get in touch with me. And please do so. Because we need volunteers and we need help from these organizations. And look around. If you can give us a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, or a couple of hours, or a couple of days, it would be very appreciated. Okay? Anything else?
Thank you very much.
There's.
We're
a meeting.
We're changing.